Steve Shaw is the National Director of Officials. He's the guy that, with the NCAA, oversees the rule book and officiating, things like that. He's with us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Welcome in, Steve. Good to see you again. How you been?
I've been great. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah. Did you tell the NCAA, we've got a game in Ireland. I really need to observe these officials firsthand. I need to go see how these guys do in game action?
Well, really, I needed to do a pre-trip over there just to make sure the stadium was set, but unfortunately, it didn't work out there.
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
Hey, Steve, there are a handful of new rules coming into 2024. The one everyone's talking about, the NFL model, the 2-minute warnings. How big of a deal do you think this is, and how big of an adjustment is this going to be for head coaches, offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, everybody involved?
Well, it is a big change, and it's really the reason we're going there is really three specific reasons. Number one, our TV partners last year, we made a change last year with the first down timing rule, and we got great feedback on that. It really accomplished what we wanted. It kind of kept the game moving. Our TV partners felt uncomfortable sometimes because they felt like the game flow was such that they needed to take back-to-back timeouts. And so the first thing we're doing with the 2-minute timeout is each of the media partners will save back one of their media timeouts to coincide with the 2-minute timeout, and they'll be less likely to take a back-to-back. And you know what I'm talking about on a back-to-back. You score a touchdown, you go to TV timeout, you kick off, TV timeout. It's 5 minutes of inaction. Nobody likes that. So it'll help us there. Certainly there's a element from the standpoint of coaching strategy. How do I use my timeouts now? Do I call them before or after? So coaches are dealing with that. But maybe most importantly in the game, we had a number of areas. We actually had 10 areas where we had timing rules that kicked in different places. We talked about the first down timing rule. It kicked in after 2 minutes last year, but we have 10-second runoffs, for example, were after 1 minute. So now we're linking all those together. So all of the timing rules, there's 10 different timing rules, will now take effect anytime after the 2-minute timeout. So the expectation is it shouldn't add time to the game since we're holding back a media timeout. And I think everybody's excited about it, and especially coming off a year where it felt like the game flow was better and we kept the game moving. And just FYI, we saved right at about 4.5 to 5 plays a game. And that's important when you look at the long season, number of student athlete exposures. And so everybody's excited about this. We'll look and see if it really does what we want it to do.
So, Steve, I want you to clarify something because, of course, it's already being talked about in our chat room here. You're not saying that it created a new commercial break. You're just saying it created a guaranteed spot for a commercial break.
That's correct. And
Okay.
and we would not, we're not looking reasons to extend the game. But what we are doing is if the TV partner knows they have kind of a guaranteed later, then they are less likely to do one of the back-to-backs. And so, no, we are not adding to the TV contracts. We're not adding a TV timeout. And the requirement is they have to keep that. So they've been very instrumental. They're excited about this, and I think they'll do it properly as we go into the season.
Okay, in-helmet communications, it's very interesting. I'm excited about it. I've watched it in the NFL for so long, but there's only 32 teams in the NFL. There's 134 at the FBS level. Is there something you guys have to worry about, making sure that it works? How does that work if one team's defensive guy can't hear? Explain that to us.
Yeah, so Jim, we've got actually 2 technology rules that we're implementing this year, and you referenced one of them, coach-to-player communication. So the way it will work, each team can have one player on the field that a coach can communicate with. They're identified, they'll have an unbranded green dot on the back of their helmet, and that's how they'll be identified. And the way it works is they can communicate with them anytime, but when the play clock hits 15 seconds or at snap, whichever comes first, then the system will be turned off. It'll stay off throughout the down, and then after the down, it will come back on. So they can't talk to them during the play, or if we have an extended time at the line of scrimmage at 15 seconds, it will be turned off. And so the intent here is to allow that communication. And as you probably remember, in our bowl season last year, we experimented with this, both this and the tablets, which is the other technology change. And we got great feedback from the coaches. And this is not really an effort to eliminate signs and sign stealing. There's still going to be signs going on because you got 10 other players for teams with tempo. But the concept of being able to communicate with that player keeps the game moving, gives the coach an opportunity to do that communication. So that's one of the two. The other, I'll just hit it real quick also. We're going to allow, and let me first say, the coach to player, and you hit it up front, is for FBS, Division I FBS only, not any other divisions. Now, if we have an FCS team playing FBS, they're allowed to use it in that game only. But once they go back to their FCS play, they cannot use it. And the reason we limited to that was not that we thought FBS was the only group that could handle it, but really was a manufacturing issue. The manufacturers are, pressed pretty hard to get to the FBS teams, and they really would not be able to reach all teams. And you don't want one team in a division to be able to get it and another that wants it can't get it for fairness. But the other technology change is tablets. We're going to allow tablets on the sideline. And so anybody on the sideline in the coach's box, or, they can take them to the locker room at halftime, can use the tablets. It's in-game video only. They can't put their analytics. They can't put data. They can't load up stuff on these tablets. It's in-game video only. It is video. It's a little different than the NFL. They use the tablets, but they do still shots. We're going to allow the in-game video on the tablets. Can't be interconnected to a big monitor or anything in the locker room. You have to just use the tablet. But those are the two technology changes. And let me mention one other thing. As y'all know, y'all deal with it every day. The dynamic of college football, things are changing right under our feet. I've never had a year. I've been Secretary of Rules editor since 2017. We actually had 3 changes, pretty significant changes, after we published the rule book. If you go into NCAA publications, the online has been updated, but a couple of them are around technology. One is after the spring, a lot of the coaches, the biggest concern they have is just like numbers. Say on the punt team, they have 2 number 5s, that's a foul. So they have to be very careful of their numbering. Same thing with the helmets. Helmet management is important. And so we've made a change on kickoff play. So on all free kicks, the system is not going to be enabled. So there's no limitation on if you had 2 or 3 green dot helmets, that's okay. And the coaches just felt like there was no advantage on that on kickoff. So we're just going to leave the system off. So that was a change. Another around technology really hadn't got much play. Y'all probably talked about it. Football Oversight actually went in and allowed now all the coaches, analysts or whoever, they can all coach players. Before, only the 10 countable coaches, the head coach, and the GAs could actually physically coach. Now, anybody on staff, all the analysts can coach a player. So we're making a change with coaches' headsets. They still can utilize 23. We used to have restrictions by, what their role was. Now there's no restriction. The head coach can designate the 23 people they want to have, coaches' headsets. So a lot of things changing in our game very quickly. And those are a couple from a technology perspective that came in even after the rules.
Let me just ask you, though, if Team A's on offense, Team B's on defense, and Team B's helmet communication all of a sudden stops working, because that's going to happen. It's just technology. Does Team A, the offense, have to shut down their communication at that point until it gets working again?
So a lot of discussion on this because that could possibly lead to some gamesmanship, if you say, hey, I'm going to prep not to have it. So the rules themselves say that there's no limitation. If one team isn't working, then you just keep playing. The conferences can adopt a rule that says, hey, if one team's communication is completely out, not just one helmet, then they can turn them off. But that's going to be dealt with on a conference by conference basis. So I think that's important. And the other thing that I'll mention there is that if we do determine multiple green dots on the field at one time, then that's a live ball 5-yard penalty. But it also creates a conference review because, the rule, this is going to be difficult, not as much on offense. I mean, the offense, you'll talk to your quarterbacks and you have a first, second, third team quarterback and, maybe another running back that plays quarterback at times. But, we see even in the offenses, the backup quarterback comes on the field and runs a play, or the wildcat or whatever. So we're going to have to be very careful, the teams will, in managing helmets. So some players are going to have multiple. On defense, it's even going to be harder because typically your middle linebacker is the guy you're going to talk to, but the backup middle linebacker who will need communications in case the regular middle linebacker goes out, he's probably on blitz packages or third down packages or whatever. So helmet management is going to be very important through this whole situation. But to your point, it'll be up to the conferences to decide how they'll deal with, failure situations. Let me add one last thing. If you ask me my biggest fear, we got 2 big technology changes. Does it work? Will it work? And we had great success in the bowl season. That's encouraging. But let me just tell you, like never before, we've had the 10 conferences working together, formulating this, talking about the technology, the different types. What happens if a MAC team is playing SEC? How do we make sure all the technology works? All 10 conferences have worked incredibly well together. We had multiple meetings virtually. We had a full day where we brought the conference administrators to Dallas and went through this. So the expectation is the conferences have spent a lot of time. We're really hopeful that the technology works. But like you say, there's over 130 teams versus 32 in the NFL. It's a tall order.
What's the hand gesture, real quick? If there's too many green dots, is it finger circle around the eye? Is it unsportsmanlike? What's your hand gesture that you're going to say there's too many green dots?
It's just an equipment violation.
Okay.
So there's no new green dot signal, but we'll take that under consideration. I like your whatever that was.
Steve Shaw is the National Director of Officials for the NCAA. Who is responsible, Steve, for monitoring the turn off at 15 seconds or the snap of the ball of the in-helmet? And I guess also what's loaded on those tablets. Where does this responsibility fall?
The Geek Squad.
It's going to be controversial.
The first is that we're actually adding a person. So in the past, you have a game clock operator, you have a play clock operator. Now you're going to have a third, which is the coach to player operator, and that person will be the one that will actually, when the play clock hits 15 seconds or snap, we'll turn it off. And then when the play is over, we'll turn it back on. And so we're working through that. And we've also had to work with the companies providing the technology. If it's 2 different companies, they've got to integrate their turn off into one switch. And so far, that has worked very well. So there's an opportunity. If you're interested, go talk to your university, and you might be the coach to player communications operator. So that's how we'll deal with that. You had a second question as part of that?
Well, just what's loaded on the pads. You said you can't have analytics and things on there. Yeah.
Yeah. That is game management. So we are not, the officials themselves will not be checking out iPads or counting numbers. They can have up to 18. That's a lot. I don't know if all schools are going to have 18, but that is really a game management responsibility. The only impact from an officiating standpoint, and we saw this in actually the first bowl game we used it, UCLA was in the game. So one of the rules that we have, if as a coach, if you take your iPad and approach an official to show them video, that is an automatic unsportsmanlike conduct foul. And that won't be a surprise. We're telling every coach so they know they cannot use their iPad to come up and show video to an official. And we really got that our first bowl game. We had an assistant coach early in the game. There was a pass play, and he brought the iPad right to the headline judge. The headline judge did a good job. He kind of walked away. The head coach came up, talked to him, and the assistant came back in again. So that will be, you probably won't see it because we're informing the coaches, but that's what we learned from the bowl season, that the coaches cannot approach the officials and show them plays on the iPad.
So,
or excuse me, the tablet. I'm not supposed to be. I'm vendor agnostic.
Yeah, vendor agnostic. Yes.
So, Steve, there is nothing more frustrating, momentum changing for a fan than when their defensive player makes a big play in the backfield and it ends up being a face mask. Now we've got horse collar tackles in the tackle box. Am I off here thinking that there's going to be a lot of this flagged early on because so much chaos there in the pocket, and a lot of these defensive linemen are just reaching and grabbing whatever they can, and it seems like when you get a good tackle for loss in the box, it's normally a defensive lineman pulling down a back by the collar.
Yeah, this was really put in as player safety. So before, just to set the ground, before, if there was action, that was a horse collar tackle, if it occurred in the tackle box, it was not a foul. And we had it's not a lot, it's not every game, but we had a few from last year. We actually had a couple of videos where we flagged it. The officials talked it through and said, no, it's in the tackle box. I think most fans didn't realize, if their quarterback got yanked down with a horse collar tackle, that it could not be a foul. So, but, from a player safety standpoint, the impact on the knees is the same, whether you're in the tackle box or outside. So this was really a player safety situation to say now, if there's action that, looks like a horse collar tackle, that is, and that's abruptly pulling them down, then it's going to be a foul anywhere on the field.
Fans, I think, sometimes forget in college athletics, college football, that every play is reviewed in real time, and then sometimes they stop play to continue that. Is there ever a time that the replay official can just buzz down, hey, you're off a half yard, move it a half yard forward? Is that allowed in the review process? Talk to us about that.
So a couple things there. And let me say up front that we're collaborative replay continues to grow. The SEC was in the forefront doing a lot of that. Now, this year, either 8 or 9, we have one conference still up in the air, but 8 or 9 of the 10 FBS conferences are going to be using collaborative replay, and we're putting in officiating standards around that. So replay is still a big part of what we're doing from the perspective of our game. One of the things that we're trying to do more of, and we call it, you can have different names for it, an expedited review. Let's say it's a simple play, the pass bounces to the receiver. You don't need replay. I mean, even from the line feed, you can tell that's clearly incomplete. For some reason, we called it complete. We're trying to save the long run over, getting under the headset just to tell them it's incomplete. So we're using our official to official communication. We call it O to O, where the replay official goes in and tells the referee, hey, incomplete pass. It counts as an official review, but we're not going to go through the whole scenario. Just very quickly, hey, it was incomplete. It's going to be 3rd and down at 3rd and 10 at the 25. Reset the ball. Let's go. And really try to keep the game moving. Occasionally you can use, and we won't use it as much as the NFL will, but you can use O to O in non-replay situations for fact-based type situations. A lot of times, like there's a block in the back call on a punt return, but the flag is 5 yards off. So you can use O to O to say, hey, the foul occurred at the 25. Only if it's fact-based information. There's no judgment in it. Hey, that wasn't holding. You cannot do anything that goes to judgment. But if it's a quick fact-based thing, they'll share that with the crew on the field without going through replay.
Perfect. If I could ask you just a few quick ones from the listeners as we wrap up here, Steve. First of all, people want us to ask you, and it's kind of broad, I get it. 10-second runoffs after the 2-minute warning. Is there a change there, or why are people wanting us to ask you that maybe?
Yeah, so before the 10, we actually have 4 different type 10-second runoff. I won't go through all that. I'm happy to, anytime you want. But they were always occurring after we went under 1 minute. And we actually had a few situations where you say, well, why are we changing that? We're locking everything to be after the 2-minute timeout. But here's a real situation that we saw occasionally. Let's say you had a fumble and the ruling on the field was fumble. The defense recovered it, ran it back. He got tackled, and it was 58 seconds. Replay looked at it. No, it wasn't a fumble. Knee was down at a minute 3. Well, now does it apply? Does it not? Now we're simple. If it's after the 2-minute timeout, we go to the 10-second runoff.
People are hungry for some sort of penalty for faking injuries. Are we close to that? I mean, what's the discussion been like for that?
Continues to be a big discussion with the rules committee. We're still not to a point where we're ready to make a penalty, because how do you know if it's a feigned injury or not? We tell our officials, if the player's down, we're going to stop the clock. There's still an appeal process. If you feel like your opponent has feigned an injury, you can appeal it, and it actually goes back to the conference to deal out any punishment. They can do it publicly or privately. We've made progress there. We haven't eliminated it, and still work to be done.
Do you think, and this is another question from the audience, do you think college coaches and the rules committee are watching this NFL kickoff, and will it be in college at some point? Do you have a gut feel on that?
Well, so we are going to watch it very closely. We had a lot of conversation back in February with the NFL, and the reason we're going to watch what they do. But here's one thing, and I know you want the short answer. This will be the medium answer. With the changes we've made to kickoffs, we've limited the run up. We touch back out to the 25. We put the fair catch option in. Really, the two most significant is we've eliminated the double team block on the kickoff and the illegal blindside block. So the good news from our perspective is our injury rates on kickoffs have actually come down to slightly below that of a regular scrimmage down. So we no longer have an injury rate issue. The question is it still a viable play? Last year, we had between 33 and 34% of our kickoffs returned. I think for the NFL, and I'm not speaking for them, but they were concerned it wasn't a viable play anymore. Their kickers were just blasting it through the end zone. You look at the Super Bowl, there were 0 returns. So they want to keep it as a viable play, and this seemed to be a way to do it. So we're going to watch it very closely. We don't have the driver of no returns and injury rate to push us there, but we'll certainly look at it to see strategically if it's a better play for our game. But we're pretty happy with our kickoff because it keeps the surprise onside kick in there, the big return that could change a game. So the kickoff play, as long as our injury rate stays where it is in pretty good shape.
We started with a 2-minute warning. We know it was TV-based. It's all about money. We've got NIL now. We've asked this question before. With the SEC, the Big Ten, and just $1 billion industry, are we ever going to see 24/7, 365-day-a-year officials?
We've had good conversations with that. What's the next step? And they're just like the conferences. I mean, nobody thinks about it, but think about if you were a Pac-12 official. I mean, that conference and you'd worked your whole career to get there, and then the conference falls apart. So our coordinators are working well together. We share talent. We really do a lot of work together from camps and clinics and development. But the NFL tried the full-time officiating group. They had individuals that they put there, and they really, as they tracked it, they just didn't see a big advantage in correct call percentages. So it's something we're looking at, to continue. How do we make our officials better? I mean, I sleep with that question in my head every night, and we've got a lot of things we're doing, but I'm not sure yet we're ready. In fact, our officials are all independent contractors. I know y'all know this. So they're technically not employees. That would be a significant change to move them to an employee status. So I don't see that coming, but we're going to continue to work every day to figure out how do we make our officials better and better.
All right, that was a lot.
That was so good.
National Director of Officiating, Steve Shell. We threw a lot at you, Steve. We appreciate you answering the questions.
Well, it's always great to be with you, and y'all do a lot for college football, and we appreciate that. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you.